Hey guys, today I want to give you 3 ways for you to get stronger. So first off, we have to figure out what is strength. Strength varies from person to person. It could be lifting 500 pounds off the floor for a deadlift, or it could be as much as, moving your mulch around from point A to point B, trying to, fix the garden. Okay, so we really have to figure out what are we trying to focus on when we're going for strength. Okay, the best way I see it is that there's 3 possible ways for you to get stronger. It's all about what kind of exercises you're wanting to do. So I think the first, basically the 3 that you can get from is you have HIIT training, you have resistance training, and then you have your compound lifts. Compound lifts go really hand in hand with the first 2. However, you can create a full workout using just compound lifts, whereas resistance training and HIIT training, you can focus on just one particular body part, one muscle. So we really want to establish what the compound movements are, and then focus on, what is the HIIT training and the resistance training. So compound movements are movements that involve 2 or more muscles in order to achieve the goal of the strength portion. So most of the time we refer to compound movements as your deadlift, your squat, and your bench. But it really could be any other kind of movement. So you can even define that as your lunges, because lunges are using multiple leg muscles. But then we're looking at your upper body doing a push-up. Push-up is technically a compound movement. It's all depending on how you place your hands and what you're really focusing on. And that's something that I can always go into another later detail video for. But we really want to focus on what the compound movement is. So honestly, when you're focusing on compound movements, 90% of the time, you're going to focus on 3 general things. You're going to be focusing 2 or more muscles, and you're focusing on your core. Okay, so what does that mean? So you're focusing on 2 or more muscles. So let's take an example, and let's focus on, we're going to squat. Okay, so today we're going to just squat. We're even going to do just a body weight squat. Okay, so body weight squat. When you're performing that squat, you are going to be using at least 3 muscles off the top of hand, and that's going to be your quads, that's going to be your glutes, that's going to be your hamstrings. Okay. Your hamstrings, they're going to be more of an eccentric. Okay, so eccentric means they're more helping or guiding, helping your body be able to perform in the lowering phase, whereas the quads are going to be more, and the glutes are going to be more your concentric. So they're going to be the shortening aspect of what your of the other side of what your hamstrings are doing. So they're actually taking in the force of gravity that's actually performing within that work. So that's only 3 of the muscles that you're really focusing on, like the big major muscles that you're focusing on. But say that we switch that around and we say, let's do a front squat. Okay, so now we're doing a front squat. So we have a barbell or a dumbbell in front of us. Well, now we're having to keep our chest up nice and tall, and now we're having to use our quads more because we're sitting. It's more of a quad workout, less hamstring. But now we're also focusing on that anterior core, so those abs, those obliques, those abductors. We're using a lot more muscles at that point. So you can change it up by not just focusing on, a back squat or a body weight squat or a front squat. When you start adding different variants of the squat to itself, you start using more muscles. Okay, but Christian, you did say core, but where does core finish at? Well, core is not just the anterior, so the front, so where the stomach is and the chest. That's not just your core. A lot of people think your core is just your abdominals and your obliques. Okay, but it is not just that. It's actually also your erector spinae. And what your erector spinae is one of the main muscles that actually keeps you erect, so keeping you nice and tall. And that's actually located in the posterior part of your body. So now we're focusing on just this part as well as the core part. If you can manage to strengthen both sides, you will have more of a well-rounded squat when you're performing. So when you're doing a front squat, the main focus is building up that front anterior core. But when you do a back squat, imagine being able to have a strong front squat. So now your anterior chain is strong, but now we're building up the posterior chain. So now we're focusing on the full spectrum of that chain. Now we're having a more well-rounded squat, whether it is a front squat or back squat or a regular body squat. So just by a hand in hand, going into a small little tangent there to show you that just doing a bodyweight squat, you're not just using your legs. A lot of people think that when I'm squatting, I'm just using my legs. While that may be true, you're also having to engage other muscles in order to perform that. So understanding compound movements is really what's going to help drive with the other two topics that we're going to talk about today. Next topic is going to be HIIT training. So what is HIIT training? It's kind of redundant in itself because you're actually saying training. It's high intensity interval training. Okay, it's kind of funny when people say I'm doing HIIT training. And it's like you don't really have to do both because you're saying training at that point. But that's me. I find it very funny. That being said, so what is HIIT training? HIIT training is high intensity interval training, and what that means is getting your blood flowing while at the same time performing an exercise, and that could be very much of any exercise that you do. I can tell you the most profound profession that is now out there that basically is HIIT training and exercise is going to be your CrossFit. So CrossFit is just basically putting exercise movements to a time or to a certain time, in a sense of you're having to work at a capacity, whether it's your anaerobic or your aerobic capacity, to a point, to a breaking point, then having a short amount of duration of rest to allow yourself to be fully depleted of your energy levels. And I'll have a separate video on what those energy levels are. But high intensity interval training is basically performing the movement and doing it at a certain amount of time, at a certain amount of speed, and then having a little bit of a certain amount of rest. So with HIIT training, a lot of people tend to focus that on is a little bit more on the aesthetic side. So we're now focusing on, we're trying to get leaner while at the same time get a little stronger. Okay, so the best way I can explain it is that word toning. So we're toning your body to look a little bit more leaner. We are burning fat. We are focusing on, other things, but you are able to get stronger in that sense as well. A lot of people that focus on HIIT training, you're going to see a lot of that in sports, because sports, most athletes only get between 1 to 2 hours, and especially if they're, high school or college athletes. 1 to 2 hours may seem really relatively long for a lot of people, but you got to think it's not just you doing 2 hours. You're having an entire team, so you're having to get in a lot of reps and a lot within a specific amount of time, and you don't have time to waste. So a lot of athletes do HIIT training because in the sense that they only have a certain amount of time to perform it. With that being said, you can get stronger that way. Okay, sometimes it involves just doing the 2 hours. Sometimes it involves doing another hour later when you get time. But overall, you're still trying to focus on, having explosive movements. So what does explosive mean? So there are 3 different types of way you can perform and create muscle fibers. So your body already has its muscle fibers. You can't create, you can't build, you can't make more. However, you can make it to where they function a different way. And what does that mean? So you have type 1, you have type 2, and then you have type 2A. The best way I explain it is type 1 is going to be your cross country athlete or your long distance athlete. So when you're performing long distances or you're having to last for a long period of time, you tend to have type 1 fibers. Type 1 fibers are relatively thinner. So that's why when you look at, marathon runners, they're not that really big. They're kind of scrawny, kind of tiny. And that's because they've been developing type 1 fibers. So type 1 means that they just fire a little bit slower, but they have a longer duration and endurance levels. Whereas now, then you're looking at, type 2 and then type 2A. I like to categorize type 2A as more of your CrossFit athletes. So type 2A is having the ability to do semi both. It's not that you're great at one or you're great at the other, but you're able to be, aesthetically strong while at the same time having a aerobic and anaerobic capacity that lasts for a long time. Best way to explain it, Matt Frazier. He's a big CrossFit athlete right now. He at one point had a 5:45. It was a sub 5 minute mile. Okay, but then he can go and then clean and jerk goes to 300 to 355 pounds. Okay, so it's up there. So it's all about being able to be strong while at the same time being relatively fast and be able to move and have the mobility and endurance. So that's type 2A. So you got type 1, more of your cross-country athlete. You got your type 2A, which is more of your, I would say more of your CrossFit, but aesthetic challenging. And then you got your type 2. Your type 2 is going to be more of your bodybuilders, your strongmen, your power lifters. Most of the time, and what type 2 is just fast twitch fibers. So you're creating those fast twitch fibers within your muscles to fastly activate, just knowing that you have at one point you have to get out. And if it's a squat, you got to get out of the hole. If it's a bench press, you got to be able to get it off the chest. If it's a deadlift, you got to get it off the ground. It all involves about being fast twitch. So being able to pull something, push something, being able to do something at a fast and moment notice. Box jumps are probably your best example. Being able to do a box jump or just do a layup for basketball. Being able to get from point A to point B, like a baseball player having to get from home plate to first place. That is a fast twitch. It's being how fast you can get to point A to point B. Most of the time with fast twitch though, you can deplete your energy levels a lot quicker. So type 1A or type 1, you're looking at slow twitch fibers. You're going to have a lot more endurance. You're going to be able to have that aerobic capacity to have that endurance to keep moving. Type 2A is you're kind of getting a nice little roundedness of it, but then your type 2, it's going to be a fast twitch. You're throwing all of your energy levels into this one specific warm-up or this movement, and then you're having to have this rest period, which I plan on having a video later about what is rest and how do you get better at that. So my last talking point today is going to be resistance training. Okay, so what is resistance training? And really you can go into that as more of a strength training with the compound movements. You can even do HIIT training this way. So it's really all together. That's why I love exercise. So resistance training is exactly what it sounds like. It's an outside source of gravity or force putting stress on your body. Okay, so when you're picking up a deadlift, okay, say the deadlift weighs 135 pounds. That is 135 pounds of force, or going off because we have gravity on this earth. You're having to pick that up from the ground to a sticking point where your hips are completely locked out. So it's a resistance point. So it's something that is an outside force causing stress on the body, and that's how you can get stronger as well. So when you're doing when you're working out at the gym and you're using any type of dumbbell or free weights or even machines, anything that involves the outside body, so that's kind of the bigger difference between HIIT training as well as resistance training. It's because HIIT training doesn't necessarily have to have exercises that involve or incorporate weights. You don't have to have weight in order to perform those, but with resistance training you have to have some sort of outside force causing stress within the body to perform that exercise, which then in turn breaks down muscle and builds. So I'm very much on this side of resistance training. It's not that I don't do a lot of HIIT training, but I'll do 1 or 2 exercises, but a lot of my exercises involve resistance training, so involving a lot of weight or involving some sort of weight or outside force that is allowing me to be stronger that way. I like picking up heavy things. I'm a power lifter. I like to classify myself as a power lifter, but I also do a lot of lifting, so a lot of lifting involves throwing weight above my head or catching it into a clean and then throwing it above my head. Being able to I like functional resistance training. I would say like like I said, with CrossFit is HIIT training, but you don't have to have weights in order to perform CrossFit. One of the workouts is Cindy, and Cindy is basically using your own body to perform an exercise. There's a whole bunch of exercises that they have there that don't involve any kind of resistance training or weights. So that's the difference between HIIT training and resistance training. Resistance has to have this. For a lot of people tend to correlate to getting stronger with resistance training, but you can get it with HIIT. But my biggest thing is resistance training. So with resistance training, I tell a lot of people is focus on really dialing in what muscles are you trying to accomplish. That's when you start looking at more of the bro sets. A lot of people tend to say bro sets, chest and thighs, action thighs, legs and shoulders. Like you're doing the bro splits. Typically that goes in between 4 to 5 times a week. Powerlifters and strongmen, they do a lot of, more so 3 to 4 days a week. Really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I know with myself, I typically now do about 3, maybe 4 days a week in the gym. At one point I was doing 6, but that's because I was giving my time to rest and work out on days. Doing, but then I wasn't doing just I wasn't deadlifting one day and then the next day deadlifting. I wouldn't touch another deadlift for at least 2 or 3 days because I knew my body was done. So now it's more so I understand the importance of rest, and something I tell a lot of people to really focus in on is understanding that your body does need rest. And so really focusing on the resistance training is really going to help you just drive in a better force of understanding that your body can be accomplishable with weights and without weights. I always tell people with the you're always going to use some sort of resistance training. Very little will someone just do movements.
Don't you tell them what we do.
Guys, I want to do something.
Don't tell them. You ain't even gotta tell them. Don't tell them. You ain't even don't tell them. Don't tell them. You ain't even gotta tell them. Don't tell them. Don't tell them. No, you say you're down with it. Don't tell them how you hit the ground with it.
Being able to just get stronger that way.
Girl, you know I'm from Chicago. I act a fool, Bobby Brown with it. In it. Nobody take me out though. You got gifts, bring them down to South Pole. Marathon, girl, I put them out. Don't you worry about it, I gon' work it out. Only it's you got me feeling like this. Oh, why? Love it while grabbing the rhythm, your hips. That's right. Rhythm is a dancer. I need a companion. Girl, I guess that must be you. Body like the summer. Fuck you like no other. Don't you tell them what we